Trump calls for RICO charges against George Soros and his radical left son. Absolutely. These people funnel money into other organizations to do their bidding. Like they basically buy district attorneys and attorney generals and basically give slap on the wrist to criminals. They fund organizations that are anti-American. Like it's so much stuff with the George Soros, his son, and their foundations. But we're going to talk a little bit about it. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my X account, so follow me there as well. All right, so let's get into this news. Now, this comes from Slay News, and they report that President Donald Trump has just called for RICO charges to be filed against radical billionaire George Soros and his son, Alex, citing their support for violent protests and political activism. On Wednesday, Trump posted on Truth Social that George Soros and his radical left son, Alex Soros, should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests. And I definitely agree. Trump said George Soros and his wonderful radical left son should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests and much more. And although the United States of America, and all throughout the United States of America, we're not going to allow those lunatics to rip apart America anymore, never giving it so much as a chance to breathe and be free. Soros and his group of psychopaths have caused great damage to our country. That includes his crazy West Coast friends. Be careful. We're watching you. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Wow. So y'all leftists out there better be careful. Y'all about to follow the law because they're watching, he says. The comments came as the New York Times reported that Arabella Advisors, a dark money network that manages billions for progressive causes, have lost one of its largest sources of funding. According to the report, the Gates Foundation has suddenly halted contributions to Arabella managed nonprofit funds. Instead, Bill Gates' organization will work directly with grant recipients. In an internal announcement dated June 24th, foundation officials told staff the decision was not political but strategic. They said, quote, teams are increasingly working directly with programmatic partners, organizations that are deeply embedded in the communities we serve and closely aligned with our mission, the note said. As we look ahead, this is a chance to build deeper, more durable relationships with those partners and to reinforce the kind of legacy we want to leave behind. Tracing Arabella's funding is notoriously difficult. The New York Times reported the Gates Foundation has funneled $450 million into the network since 2008. Wow. Almost $500 billion. The money ultimately supported, I said a trillion, almost $500 million. Sorry. The money, let's see. The money ultimately supported groups ranging from left-wing climate organizations to abortion initiatives and even permanent anti-Trump protest operations. With Trump back in the White House and federal investigations underway into Democratic Party-aligned funding structures, including Act Blue, the pressure on Arabella and its partners has intensified. The Times noted that the Gates Foundation decision may have come earlier as Arabella has increasingly become a target of conservative watchdogs for its influence operations. That's because they know they're doing dirt. They know Arabella is taking that dark money and funneling it. Sorry, I can't talk tonight. Funneling it to places where it shouldn't be going. With President Trump back in the White House, the political risks have only mounted, the report said. This lets you know they're doing some corrupt stuff, right? Peter Schweizer and Seamus Bruner of the Government Accountability Institute recently reported that No Kings, a far-left protest group, I covered them, formed to oppose Trump, received $114.8 million from the Arabella dark money network. The Gates Foundation confirmed to the Times that the move was, quote, a business decision that reflects our regular strategic assessment of partners and operating models. The shift comes as some nonprofits reportedly distance themselves from Arabella to preserve Gates' funding. Several groups are leaving Arabella's new venture fund. The fund sponsors more than 170 projects and has funneled billions into progressive causes. While Gates once provided a significant share of the NVF's support, by 2023, its contribution had dropped to just 2%. The Times also reported that Bill Gates met with President Trump at the White House on Tuesday afternoon, hours before the story broke. What is clear, the report concluded, is that Gates is moving to insulate his foundation as scrutiny intensifies on the left's philanthropic networks and the financial pipelines funding Democrat-aligned groups. They're running. The rats are fleeing the ship. They're stopping payment to these groups that are funding these radical agendas, these so-called protests and stuff like that. The tap is being cut off, and this is crazy. This is wonderful to see. I would have never thought anything like this would happen. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave y'all comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.